Oh my god. Syahida,
Yes.
untuk nak buat kau notice for the coin toss kan, aku akan tanya kau. Timekeeper, are you ready for the coin toss? Lepas tu kau buka coin toss terus. Lepas tu aku cakap we shall begin now, baru kau tekan.
Alright. Clear. Loud and clear.
Belum, version belum keluar lagi.
Hey guys, so we are going to start in a few minutes. We are preparing a little bit more on the technical stuff, so hopefully you guys can wait for a few minutes. Okay, thank you.
Hello. This is Talos and IIUM, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yo.
Hello. Sophia's not in yet. Let me call her. Sophia, you in?
Yep.
Okay, we are in this very small room. So
Yeah, what have I done?
we just have to sit.
What, like any chair?
How do I move? Oh, you can actually hold G to walk through things, you know? Did you know that?
Oh, wait. So people say?
Yeah. Objects, people, everything.
Okay. Hi guys. So we are gonna start soon, and later Zone will blast a Facebook link and also a YouTube link for this competition. And you guys can share the Facebook link and YouTube link to your friends. Okay. So siapa-siapa yang dah tengah tengok sekarang, so you guys can share. Yeah, so now the link are prepared. Sekejap copy and then send. Okay, so I already sent to your HOD, so hopefully your HOD can get the link to yours. Okay, so before we start, I would like to say congratulations to all our semi-finalists that managed to be at this level. We have T.Ribe Talos from Taylor University, and we have Kerabat Uiya from IIUM, University of International Islamic University, kan? Okay. And then we have Stripes from University Malaya, and we have USM from University Science Malaysia. Okay, guys. So today, we gonna have two session, which is room one, the match between T.Ribe Talos versus Kerabat Uiya, and also room 2 we have Stripe versus USM, and both room will gonna have a different motion. Okay, so the motion we will release in a little short time after this. Okay, if you guys notice, for the participant on the room, if you guys notice, there is a paper on the table. If you press X, and then you will see the image. Okay, and later on, we will change the paper into the motion. So just wait for it. I will tell in a few minutes. Before that, I would like to introduce for our judge. Okay, so for room 1, we have Talos versus Uiya. We have Mas Aisyah Sofia, and also Kavirat Sheka from Sedang Royal Debate Clubs, and we have architect Aimi Roslan from PAM. So tonight we're gonna have a judge from PAM, educators from PAM, and for room 2 we have educators from SRDC, which are Cyril Joshim Nathan, and also Ai Chun Kiat from SRDC, and technologist Sharizi Muhammad Shukri from PAM. So these are our judges for tonight, and I will release the motion now. Okay, so to see the motion, you guys need to come out from the room and re-enter back the room. Okay? If you guys didn't see it yet, meaning that the technical team haven't done yet lah. Dah ke? Okay, you guys to get out. Everyone get out, and then you guys need to re-enter back the room. Okay? Jalan-jalan dulu, lepak dulu. Done. Okay, guys. So the brief is ready. So we have a very interesting motion for the brief lah. The motion is ready. We have a very interesting motion tonight. That's gonna be a good discussion among the debaters. Okay. So for those who are watching this live, for semi-final 1 between Uiya or Kerabat Uiya and also T.Ribe Talos, the motion is: this house believes that online learning hinders the creative process among architecture students. I repeat, this house believes that online learning hinders the creative process among architecture students. So that's the motion for semi-final 1. And for semi-final 2, between USM versus Aum Stripes from University of Malaya, the motion is this house believes that the minimum salary for architecture graduate should be 3,000. Wow, so this should be very interesting because I'm just graduate and I didn't get the 3,000 yet. Okay, so I repeat, this house believes that the minimum salary for architecture graduates should be 3,000. Okay, so after this, I'm gonna pass the mic to the chairperson, and chairperson will proceed to the next process. And good luck to everyone, and have fun with the debates. Thank you.
Thank you, Shah. Okay, is everyone here from Talos University and also IIUM University? Can the leader answer me, respond to me? Is everyone here for room 1?
Yes, supposedly.
Okay, it's from Uiya, right? What about
Yes, yes.
Talos University? Is
Yes,
everyone
everyone
here?
is here for Tribe.
Everyone is here. Okay.
Yes.
So, may I know, Architect Aini, are you here?
Yes, hi. I can hear you.
Hi. Okay. Um. Okay. So I think we can start now. So, yes. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to semi-final of Zone 32nd Architectural Student Workshop's first ever debate competition, B.Yond. Today's match is between Kerabat Uiya from International Islamic University Malaysia and T.Ribe Talos from Talos University. The motion for today's debate is, this house believes that online learning hinders the creative process among architecture students. Now, we will be determining the government and opposition sides for both teams by using a coin toss. For Kerabat Uiya, I repeat, for Kerabat Uiya, if the coin lands on heads, the team will be acting as the government. If it lands on tails, the team will be acting as the opposition. Once determined the first team's side, the other team will instantly be acting as the opposite side. We hope everyone is clear on the instruction. Timekeeper, are you ready for the coin toss?
Yes.
Okay, so we shall begin now.
Tail.
Okay, it's still meaning that Talos University going to be the government while while IIUM, Kerabat Uiya, will be the opposition. Okay, so as you can see from the screen, Talos University will be acting as the government side. Meanwhile, Kerabat Uiya will be acting as the opposition side. We hope every speaker is clear on their respective team side. Now we will be directing both teams to their separate breakout rooms as speakers will have exactly 15 minutes to discuss today's motion. For the government, please go to the government 1 room. For the opposition, please go to the opposition 1 room. Thank you.
try announcing on the podium. Maybe they didn't check the chat.
Okay, is everyone here from T.Ribe and Kerabat Uiya?
Yes.
Yes, for
supposedly.
Kerabat Uiya. T.Ribe, tell us.
This
May I
is for
know?
Tribe as well.
Okay, thank you. Before we can start the debate, the speakers for T.Ribe Talos must state their speaker position. May I know who's going to be the Prime Minister?
Justin will be the Prime Minister. Me, Aloysius, I will be the Deputy Prime Minister, and Jasmine will be the Whip.
Thank you, T.Ribe Talos. Next, the speaker for Kerabat Uiya must state their speaker position. May I know who's going to be the opposition leader?
The opposition leader will be Sauban. The second speaker would be Ikram. And the opposition whip will be me, Ismail. That's all. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Kerabat Uiya. Who's the opposition leader again?
The opposition leader is Sauban. Sauban
Sauban.
Ismail.
Okay, thank you. So, yes. Good evening to the honorable educators, lecturers, debaters, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start our debate today, please mute your microphones to ensure there will be no disturbance to the flow of this debate. I would like all participants to turn on their cameras for this competition. My name is Ashifa Najiha and I will be the chairperson for this debate session. Meanwhile, Nur Shahida will be the timekeeper for this debate. This House would like to call upon the motion that this House believe that online learning hinders the creative process among architecture students. Now, I would like to clarify the rules and regulations of this debate competition. For the substantive speech, the timekeeper will ring the bell at the end of the first minute to show that point of information can now be delivered. The timekeeper will ring once at the beginning of 6 minutes to show that time for point of information is over. The timekeeper will ring twice at the 7 minutes, after which the speaker has 15 seconds to conclude their speech. Then, the timekeeper will ring continuously to show that the time is over, and any further explanation will not be taken into account. After both sides have presented their speeches, 3 minutes will be given to each team to prepare for their reply speeches. The opposition side will present their reply speech, followed by government side. Reminder, no new arguments and points of information are to be presented in the reply speeches. For the reply speeches, the timekeeper will ring once at the end of third minute to indicate that the speaker has 1 minute left to conclude their speech.
I just...
And the timekeeper will ring twice at the fourth minute, in which the speaker has 10 seconds to conclude. And finally, the timekeeper will ring continuously to indicate that the time is over. All debaters are expected to have a reliable and good internet connection during this debate. Should there be any unavoidable circumstances where debaters lose connection during their speech, 5 minutes will be granted for debaters to regain their connection. If debaters fail to gain connection within the 5 minutes, marks will be given according to how far they presented before the connection was lost. A sound check will be done now as I announce the speakers of each team. When your name is called, please test your microphone to ensure you are audible. Please inform the committee if there are any problem or technical issues. So for Talos Uni, we'll be acting as the government team with Mr. Justin as the Prime Minister. Mr. Justin, are you here?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Aloysius as the Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Aloysius, are you here?
Yes.
Okay. And Mrs. Jasmine as the government whip. Mrs. Jasmine, are you here? Mrs. Jasmine, are you here?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you guys hear?
Yeah. Then Kerabat Uiya will be acting as the opposition team for this debate, with Mr. Sauban as the opposition leader. Mr. Sauban, are you here?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Ikram as the deputy leader of opposition. Mr. Ikram, are you here?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. And Mr. Ismail as the opposition whip. Mr. Ismail, are you here?
Present.
Okay. I shall now introduce our adjudicators. Mr. Kaviraj Shekhar. Hello, Mr. Kaviraj. Can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. Mrs. Mas Aisha Sophia. Mrs. Mas Aisha, can you hear us? Are you here?
Yep, I can hear.
Yes, thank you. And also Architect Army Roseline. Hi, Miss Army, can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Okay, thank you. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I call upon the Prime Minister, Mr. Justin, to open the case for the government. The floor is yours.
A very good evening to the honorable adjudicators, to the honorable chairperson, worthy opponents, and also my fellow teammates. My name is Justin, and acting as the first speaker of side government, we would like to, of this debate, we would like to propose the motion of today's debate, which is that this house believes that online learning hinders the creative process among architecture students. As the first speaker, I will be presenting our main arguments in support of this motion, and my second speaker will be supporting my arguments and also giving out another point, and my third speaker will be rebutting the points given by opposition as well. So to start off our argument on why we think, why we support the motion, before that, I would like to define and set the parameters of today's debate. Now, online learning refers to the process of learning, which is acquiring new knowledge and understanding of certain matters, and online learning means carrying through such process through the digital platform without physical interaction. Now, creative process is the evolution of an idea or a concept into its final form through a progression of thoughts and actions. Hinder means to make it difficult of something to do something or for something to happen. Now, I believe that all of us as architecture students, we are familiar with the word studio, and I would like to clarify the word studio for our non-architectural informed audience as well. Now, studio will refer to the physical classrooms that architecture students usually do their work in or study, and in this case, learn in. Now, our main argument to start off in support of this motion is that online learning cannot replicate the benefits physical classes or studios, the studio culture, can bring to the creative process of students. Now, the creative process usually comprises of a few of these steps. Okay, we start off with empathize, which is to understand the context on which the design is to build for, the creative process is done for, and to define the process and to define the project. Ideation, to create ideas and generate ideas and views and visions for the project. Prototype is to initially realize the project and to test it out, which is to in the forms of physical model, in forms of drawings, test the process and challenge the creative process and its forms. So I believe in the process of learning, communication is key. The entire essence of learning is communication of ideas, communications of new knowledge. It is very important and involves many sides. Now, communication is crucial to this process, and online learning can never replicate the communication, the ability to communicate in physical classes, in studios. And not just communication also includes not just verbally, but also visually, orally, sensorially. All of this includes within communication, and it is very important to recognize that architecture is so much more about just visual. It's so much more about verbal, but it's the senses. It is every single sense that we are able to feel, we are able to empathize with, and it is very important. And as architecture students, we are building for a certain site, for certain people, and undoubtedly, online classes can never bring us as close to the site, as close to the people, compared to actually being with them. Now, this is my first point: is that site visits we will not be able to benefit from site visits as much as online learning. Google Earth and Google Maps, even a street view, can never tell us what's the true essence of the people and the place that we are building with. It will never help. It can never. It cannot recreate the experience of understanding a certain project, and it is crucial because it stops us right in the
POI?
start of the creative process. Sorry. It stops us right in the start of the creative process. We cannot empathize with the people that we're designing. We're going through the creative process for. We could not define into the best essence of the project, and this is very, very crucial to the creative process. We're starting off with a bad foot right here. Now, before I move on, I'll start with POI. Right, I'll continue. The next. Sorry, go on.
All right, so my POI was simple. I would like to ask, did you know that the Google Earth has also the option to view in 3D regarding the site visit that we are going to do? May I need clarification from your...
All right, thank you. Yes, and as you mentioned, it is 3D, but the way you perceive it is through the screen. It is still 2D in a sense. You're looking at a picture that replicates the 3D form, but you can't touch it, you can't feel the dimensions, and most importantly, it's not just about visual, it's not just about what you see, but what you feel. You can never feel the wind, you can never smell the smells, that the scent of the place, you can never interact with the person, you can touch the texture and the surfaces of the building. No, thank you. And that leads to also the communication point that I just made. And it's not about visual, but it's about sensorial experience of the entire learning process, which is crucial to the creative process. And it's the very first step of it. Now, communication also happens between students, especially group works. Now, we all know architecture is a collaborative discipline. It involves not just one single person, one single mind, but it involves many, many people, and to collaborate and to generate ideas and go through the creative process together so that we can challenge each other ideas. Now, this is definitely, this process will definitely be hindered when it's online learning and online classes, because we can never project our ideas the same as we are in physical. We cannot interact with people. We cannot build meaningful relationships strong enough that we can project our ideas with confidence. Now, this is a great, this hinders each student very much, because students feel isolated from their group mates, feel isolated from their peers. They are single, they are alone in their own room talking to the screen, where in most cases you can't even see the other person that they're talking with. Now, this is a problem, and this actually affects the interpersonal relationship of students with their peers and also with their lecturers. Lecturers are one of the main sources that we acquire knowledge to help out with our creative process in every single step, to criticize the project and to work on it through testing and prototyping stages. Now, it is, if you can't get our ideas, which is very conceptual and abstract in architectural terms, if you can't project our ideas in a physical space, a physical room right in front of the lecturers with models, with perception, and to see all these ideas, we will never be able to truly experience the creative process. We will never be able to really criticize our ideas and to work on the creative process. Now, I think this is very, very crucial to every architecture student. So just to end my speech, I would like to say again that we strongly support the motion that online learning hinders the creative process among architecture students, especially the communication of ideas and knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. The Prime Minister spoke for 7 minutes and 30 seconds. Next, let us invite the opposition leader, Mr. Sauban, to state the opposition's objections with regard to today's motion.
Bismillah. All right. This House believes online learning can facilitate creative process among architecture students. Ladies and gentlemen, these three representatives from Taylor are fighting a losing battle to begin with. But before that, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good evening I bid to all, very honorable of judges and precise timekeeper, amazing government on the side of government, worthy comrades on the side of opposition, and not to forget members of this beautiful house. I'm going to do two things today. First, I'm going to rebut whatever case has been brought up by the side of Prime Minister. Second, I will provide I will provide the argument from the opposition. First, let's take a look at what has been defined by the Prime Minister. One thing not to be overlooked at is that they fail to tell us why is that exactly does this e-learning hinders when you yourself can better illustrate your design in BIM or SketchUp at the first place. All right. So before you accept the motion, you need to prove to us what are the things that hinders architecture student in e-learning when you yourself use SketchUps or BIM for your design. Why is that hinders when tons of benefit has been stated in studies? How is it hinders, and when is that proven that e-learning does not facilitate architecture student? When you yourself depends on the Pinterest or to find concept for initial design. Ladies and gentlemen, moving on to the ladies and gentlemen, digital learning can meet the demands of today's student. COVID-19 is not going anywhere, and the move to online will continue to be under a microscope. Everything about our current situation screams that the old way of doing things is no longer sufficient, and we must continue to innovate in all facets to help prepare learners for what is and what will be. All right, moving on to my next task. I want to signpost my theme structure. What will I do today and what will my comrades do? First, I'm going to provide an argument under the key phrase of fostering cognitive ability towards creativity, which is ability to focus, flexible learning, and instructor can embrace advanced technology. My second speaker will talk about locomotive design process, provide assistant and going to provide an assisted the students a freedom of learning. And my week will sums up and rebut all the problematic argument from the government. Ladies and gentlemen, the implementation of e-learning in education has been favorable in multiple contexts. Previously, studies have presented several advantages associated by the implementation of e-learning technologies into university education. E-learning has been viewed as the ability to focus on the requirements of individual learners. For instance, focusing on needs of individual learners can deliver knowledge in digital age effectively as compared to the educational institution that needs of instructor. Objectives can be achieved in the shortest time with least effort through e-learning. When managing the e-learning environment, its effect on educational learning are observed in providing equal access to the information regardless of the user's location, their ethnic or origin, races, and ages. The environment for e-learning also helps students or learners to rely on themselves so that the instructor are no longer the solitary knowledge source, rather they serve as guides and advisor. Several studies have also shown that the positive effects of e-learning from the insight of learner or students. For instance, e-learning allows to observe much flexible learning ways to go for classes with much reduced need of travel and money, the cost of budget for the transportation and all. Learners are allowed to get deeper insight of the information through activities that are carried out in the classroom through interactive video facility. These allow learners to respond promptly towards the activities. It is important for instructors to embrace and for the third point is that it is important for instructors to embrace the advanced technology throughout the process of teaching, and therefore learning has a range of skill in information and communication technology, it is also observed that e-learning system allow enhanced communication between students and instructor. Part-time and full-time student can actively participate in the online degree courses selected from any location or place, providing people who are traveling or relocated and easily accessible resource for experiences and learning. The integration and use of e-learning offers disabled people also an opportunity for advancing their education from any location. These disabled people might be minority, but they are people they must be taken into consideration. And e-learning helps them. Other important benefit as highlighted is that indicated several benefits. It's making it user friendly, effective in managing time, provide ease in the management of courses, teachers, facilities, generate report. It further provides timely reminder to user, which include data of deliveries, answering question, test dates, and it also has been analyzed that the usefulness of the e-learning. All right. Finding of the study indicated that e-learning undoubtedly is one of the effective tools. Some of the identified advantage include its flexibility, following the module employed, and help in any teaching through any style of environment code, considering the modular design and its user interface. E-learning superior rate of usability along with the competitors. All right. So because of these three significant advantage of e-learning, which is fostering cognitive ability towards creativity, ability to focus, and flexible learning, and also instructor can embrace the advanced technology. This house believes that online learning can facilitate creative process among architecture students. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Sauban. The opposition leader spoke for 7 minutes and 5 seconds. To continue our debate today, I call upon the Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Aloysius, to counter the opposition's argument.
Hello, can you hear me? All right. Good morning to the adjudicators, the just opposition in front of me, timekeeper, chairperson, and last but not least, the audience watching from the live streams tonight. Now, I'm acting as the second speaker of the proposition team regarding the motion today, which is online learning hinders the creative process among architecture students. But before I dive into the contentions, I would like to rebut on some of the interesting yet somewhat misled argument put forth by the opposing team today. They said that we are fighting a losing battle, and goes on to state that number one, we can use SketchUp, Beam, etc. But in fact, I can decimate this whole argument by simply saying that yes, let's welcome these online resources in face-to-face learning. Why not you get the best of both worlds and further boost the creative process with all the added benefits of face-to-face learning that it can bring? The opposition failed to see that online resources do not simply mean online learning, and is clearly stated in the definition provided by my Prime Minister. Instead, they do not address the many benefits of face-to-face learning because they know it's true. So instead, they harp on the many benefits of these online resources and communication tools, which still can be further enhanced in face-to-face learning. I will rebut the cognitive learning and ability to focus easily in what I will talk about in my contention later. Now, I would like to enrich what my first speaker's points with my contention that there are just too many variables when it comes to online learning. Let's see, how many times have we been in a Zoom call or a Discord call or a Teams call, and where a student is in the middle of an important discussion with the lecturer only to be disrupted by something like internet connectivity? Another key challenge of online class is the internet connectivity. We cannot deny this, ladies and gentlemen, and it's these variables are just conveniently ignored by what the opposition has said in his speech. While internet penetration has grown leaps and bounds over the years, in smaller cities and towns, a consistent connection with decent speed is a big problem. We are not saying that, well, all students will encounter these problems, but you do have to agree that it is unfair to not grant equal opportunity to people with the occasional or even constant internet issues in the home. Without consistent internet connection for students and teachers, there can be a lack of continuity, in learning for that said student. This is definitely detrimental to the critical points in the creative process, where narrative, design intentions is so important and must be properly transferred. The message must be completely understood to the lecturer and tutor. To be affected by this small niggling factor that can easily be avoided in face-to-face learning is something that face-to-face learning simply has the edge over online learning. And what's not to say that even with good internet connectivity, that these points are being put across definitely. The screen is merely 2D, like what my Prime Minister has said, and the architectural syllabus nowadays requires us to understand in the 3 dimension. You cannot simply see all the sides of a model on accepted. Yes.
So would you like to clarify on what do you mean by except for using the 2D platform that we have, what do you how can you say that with the actual being with this physical form of learning would be better than online learning?
I mean, this is the whole crux of the argument made by Prime Minister and me. If you've been hearing correctly, we have been saying about the benefits of face-to-face learning, plus all the benefits provided conveniently by the first speaker that can be added on to enhance face-to-face learning. These online tools such as Beam, SketchUp, Revit, and so on. So it is so imperative and so obvious that to the flow today that face-to-face learning is just superior in creative process building than online learning. Allow me to move on to my contention. You cannot simply see all the sides of a model in the screen, and there is no doubt that some bits of the message may be lost in translation. Besides this, let's talk about site visits, like what my Prime Minister has said, that the opposition has conveniently ignored. How on earth are you supposed to get a feel of intangible elements like what he said on a site via the screen? The smell, the specific views, the community that lives and breathes around the site is simply lost via online learning. Effectively, the creative process just cannot be ignited when surfing through Google Maps or Google Earth, like what you said, on a screen. The 2D world simply cannot produce meaningful and lasting architecture were we to experience it in 3 dimensions. The thing is, my Prime Minister has mentioned like texture, community, sensory experience. These are something that just cannot be ignored when it comes to creative architectural output. Besides this, we are also ignoring the fact that for many students, one of the biggest challenges on online learning is the struggling with focusing on the screen for long periods of time. I feel like this is clashing with what the first speaker has said, and this I would like to rebut with my point on my own, which makes more sense in this context. It goes in line with my colleague's point about studying in isolation, and you cannot create a suitable environment just to get this brain juice going. In architectural tutorials, for example, that could potentially go the distance, for example, let's say from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. Normally in a face-to-face meeting, the students, if they are bored, normally in an online meeting, the students, if they are bored, could abuse the lack of physical presence to drift their minds elsewhere, but definitely not architecturally and definitely not creatively. With online learning, there's also a greater chance for students to be easily distracted by social media, and it's so demanding online than it is in face-to-face. Whereas in a studio, you are surrounded by like-minded young architects conducive to the creative process. They're able to concentrate longer. They are producing significantly better quality than online counterparts. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to stress again and again that this will not happen to all students, but for the unfortunate that do not have access to better online infrastructure, I argue this is simply unfair, and we should not parade online learning as something that should be preferred over face-to-face learning. It is just better to provide an even playing field for students to brainstorm and kickstart the creative process so that obvious better quality architecture could be output. Therefore, I would like to stress again that online learning hinders the creative process among architecture students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aloysius. The Deputy Prime Minister spoke for 7 minutes and 19 seconds. Next, I would like to call upon the Deputy Leader of Opposition, Mr. Ikram. Mr. Ikram, you may start now.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good evening to everyone here in the floor listening listening and actually understanding what we're talking about here today. So, I would like to repeat the motion above in a simple manner. So, the motion above is actually speaking a way that this house believes that online learning hinders on the creativity of architecture students, while we, the opposition, believe either we are in the other side of the idea of the motion. So, as my PM has been saying earlier, focus and flexibility. So, first of all, I want to rebut what the first speaker or the Prime Minister, mumblingly said about online learning lacks in touch and communication, and architects, designers, we work for or we work with people. Ladies and gentlemen, someone called McKinnon in 1965, he even said that architecture is a work that does not revolve around group. Little did they know that architecture discipline has been recognized in the literature as an appropriate profession for exploring creative learning process, and this involves the literature review of the designer's mind. So we always forget the importance of literature review, and usually the literature review is the architects or the designers own themselves research and look out for ideas, and as they said before, empathize, ideation, vision, and testing the process of your modeling. So actually literature review comes in hand during ideation. You must accept the fact that you yourself go immerse yourself in e-learning to know more about literature review, and that is why I think that argument is invalid. So first of all, and then the second part, or the second speaker kept repeating and repeating and repeating about what the Prime Minister have said in regards to motion of sensors and stuff. We are equipped with so many new stuff that have started developing to actually know the sensors and motions around the area. I think you guys have never heard about local planning, In Malaysia, we have our own local plan that actually prescribes every detailing about the entire area. If you want a detail about Selangor, you can just refer to the local plan of Selangor or state Selangor plan. What is so hard about that? And do you need to actually go down and actually experience the whole entire thing like it's an entire story? Like, okay, I'm in Jalan Bukit Ketimpang, or I'm experiencing the fear of residents in Jalan Bukit Ketimpang. How are you very sure that your experience is accurate as the one that have been surveyed and researched by their own government authority? Thank you so much. So I'll proceed with my point first. First of all, e-learning will enhance locomotive design process as explained by my Prime Minister, by my LO, which is the focus. First of all, let's explain the mechanism of locomotor skill. Locomotor skill is a physical action that propels an individual from one place to another. This may mean moving forward, backward, or even upward using a certain skills. Again, creative thinking is a locomotive process. Let's look at one quote by Edwin Hutchins. Humans create their cognitive powers by creating the environments in which they exercise those powers. The government simply ignores the benefits of self-learning and actually, literally close their eyes in accepting any benefits from e-learning, and actually repeats the same thing like experience and human touch. While, ladies and gentlemen, our brain is smart enough to adapt to the online to the e-learning.
POI, please.
Sorry, I'll get back to you later. So first of all, the above quote explains the meaning of cognitive skill, where our brain works and adapt in the environment. Cognitive skills are the core skills your brain uses to think, read, learn, remembers, reason, and pay attention. Working together, all of these ideas, they take incoming information and moving into the bank of knowledge you use every day at school, at work, and in life. Hence, whatever your brain environment, whatever environment your brain is on, it will be able to adapt. And by now, I trust you, we have been going to e-learning for so long. And to this point, everyone has adapted new ways and new methods of learning and new methods of creativity thinking during e-learning. The motion shows that e-learning hinders in creativity. It's like saying e-learning disrupts the creativity of a mind or gives challenge in the creativity of the mind. Creativity comes from within the people. Creativity does not comes from face-to-face learning. Bear in mind that, creativity does not involve in face-to-face learning. Creativity comes from within. Our creative artwork, our creative design, our creative ideas comes from within. Creativity is not binded with interaction with people, communication, and thoughts. What are you saying? Like, oh, when you're working and 10 years later, you need to always work with people. That is not the idea here. Creativity comes from yourself. The person themselves will know the process of creative thinking. And on one serious note, saying that it hinders with our brain actually is you guys are actually downgrading the ability of our brain to actually function. You know, you're saying that our brain has the capability of not has the in e-learning, our brain can't actually communicate and stuff. How do you know? Our brain is a smart and intelligent and adapted program
POI,
that can
please.
adapt to anything. Yes, exactly.
I think this speaker has failed to understand what my second speaker has brought forth in that early stage of his speech, saying that physical classes can actually incorporate the best of both online learning and also physical classes. We are not saying that physical classes will exclude all online resources. Please clarify.
All right. So your second speaker, yes, indeed, your second speaker clarifies in both learning, but did your second speaker actually, explain the mechanism of how to implement both online and face to face? I think not. Thank you so much. So the idea here, is that, let's say an analogy. A design process involved from literature studies, environmental learning, and requires focus for us to actually purge the idea that we have. Even architects, like architects need their own space. Even though you work together, but architects need their own space to actually promote or to go through the empathize, ideation, vision, and test the process, which face-to-face learning does not affect that. Instead, e-learning is actually a way for us to actually improve our brain skills. And now my second point is e-learning provide an assisted freedom of learning, as what my first speaker said, flexibility. Let's say the idea of self-learning have been here since before. Online course from international ideas, online course from international universities were actually implemented it beforehand. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, I think that the idea here is we opposition believe that e-learning does not affect or hinders on the creativity process, because creativity comes from within us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Ikram. The Deputy Leader Opposition spoke for 7 minutes and 17 seconds. Next, I would like to call upon the Government Whip, Mrs. Jasmine. The floor is yours.
Salutations to the adjudicators, chairperson, timekeeper, my worthy opponent, my fellow teammates, and lastly, the members of the floor. We as the government fully support and agree with the motions today, which is this House believe that online learning hinders the creative process among architecture students. My name is Jasmine, and I'm the third speaker from the government side, and I'll be rebutting all the statements given by the first and the second speaker of the opposition team. I would first rebut on the first speaker of the opposition team. They stated of how you can utilize SketchUp or Beams. We as the government, we do agree that all this process is useful, and we do believe that we can still utilize all these apps. But on our stand, we do believe that a physical class could actually help benefit them more, so they could actually use physical 2D and a 3D form of ideation to actually develop the ideas better, and they could actually have a better sense of security if they are actually working together with their friends to figure out all these things. Moving on, they also stated about
POI?
Yes.
Okay, so Ikram or me?
Yeah, you. Ismail, go.
I just want to ask you, what do you mean by physical classes really contributes to both physical class and online learning? How would you like to implement them?
In this current world, I mean, we do acknowledge that there's a lot of information in the internet, and there's a lot of things that we can get from the internet. Even there's just so much resources, but in a certain way, it's hard. There's too much information in the internet, so we have to filter it out. And in another way, that physical class, it doesn't mean that we have to read from books. It doesn't mean that we have to work just physically. So we can also have online learning as well. They also stated, one point that they stated was, they said that the video, no thank you, the online platforms such as Zoom is enough for the video interactions between the students and the lecturers. How are they gonna communicate with one another, and they stated for students to be able to explain and communicate with the tutor and peers. How is it any better compared to face-to-face learning, where students are able to fully explain and communicate visually, verbally, and better face-to-face? And they also stated that e-learning enhanced communications between students to lecturers. I do think there's something wrong here, because as most of us are students, we can actually see how many people actually turn on their camera during lecture or tutorial. How lecturer has to actually keep on prompting them and asking them to turn on to actually even reply to the lectures in class itself. And how some students even went missing in action halfway through. They didn't even care about attendance and they just left their Zoom open right there. How does e-learning enhance communication? I think there's some misinformation right here by the opposition team. And I would just like to quote what my Deputy Prime Minister has stated, that there is a lot of variables that will hinder the communication, that will hinder the creative design process. And one more thing is, they keep on talking about e-learning and e-learning on how it's good, but I would just like to bring it back to the motion, which is this House believes that online learning hinders the creative process among architecture students. So it's the creative process. I think they were talking too much on the e-learning, but not elaborating on how it does not hinder the creative process among architecture students. How does face-to-face communication is worse than an online learning, and how does online learning does not hinder the creative process? I don't really get this point. And next, they also stated on the focus and flexibility, and they also stated that we work with people and it does not revolve around books. We as the government, we don't agree on this statement. We do believe that it also doesn't revolve around books. We believe that we can use all other types of platforms or any form of way that we can get a certain piece of information, but we're just not focusing on online learning. It could be site visitation and all the other little things. And they also stated that, yes.
Okay, so you're saying that the way you're saying it, it's like e-learning simply comes from classes only. You do know that e-learning is a process. We have, self-exploration. So what are you actually saying here? You're like saying that we're living in a bubble. Please clarify that.
Thank you. We believe that it does help in a certain way, but it's not beneficial. It's not more than how you get when you have a face-to-face class, when you have a physical class, when you actually meet up with your peers, you meet up in the studio, you actually see your lectures, and you also say all the ideas, and you can actually visualize all the ideation and share your opinion from one another better. And they also stated how the literature review of artist students come in hand during ideation. And they also stated that there is a local plan where entire area and all the information is you can just find it and literally write it all down. Then if we don't figure out how, because we are students, we are learning, if we just take all their information without us actually trying to figure out and experience how they actually took and learn from it, how are we gonna actually learn on how to kind of have a proper information on, for example, from the local plan? So how did they do it? So, for example, that they definitely went through few process, that they actually had site visitation and actually go to the site and get all this information. So I do believe that as a student, we also must actually go down and experience the entire thing and see what we could improve from the analyst. And they also stated that the students need to adapt to this new environment. But actually, how many of us actually struggle and break down during the pandemic when we couldn't see our friends, especially for the new semester students, where they are not able to actually be confident and they are just isolated from one another. The sense of security and mentally, and how it affects them mentally and psychologically is very much our concern as well. And they also stated that we will need to work by ourselves and but we as the government, we all know that the nature of architecture is a collaborative work. So we do believe that they should be able to work with themselves, and they also stated that they need their own space. So we do agree they can still go home and have their own space and come to the studio and work with another. So with that, I would just like to repeat my stand, which this house believe that online learning hinders the creative process, and we strongly believe on that. With that, I would like to rest.
Thank you, Mrs. Jasmine, for the points given. The government whip spoke for 7 minutes and 33 seconds. Next, I would like to call upon the opposition whip, Mr. Ismail, to present his case.
All right, go. Greetings and good evening I bid to ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my precious team members, precious timekeepers, adjudicators, and of course, our worthy opponents for today. Ladies and gentlemen, let us not forget to go back to what we are now doing. We are now discussing about this house believes that online learning hinders the creative process among architecture students. However, as a position whip, we believe that e-learning or online learning will not hinder the creative process among architecture students under several reasons. But before I go further, let me elaborate on what will I be doing for this evening. Firstly, I'll be summarizing the clashes between the two sides, the government points and our points from the oppositions. Next, I will clarify on why our point is stronger rather than their points, which keeps repeating and repeating and keeps going. And lastly, I'll be telling you and why we should win the debate and motion for today. Ladies and gentlemen, before I go even further beyond my limitation to speak for today, let me make it short and concise so everybody in this house can understand what we are discussing for today. When we are talking about architecture students, and we are talking about this motion for today, first of all, I would like to clarify that did the government just ignore the status quo that is going on? Did you know that e-learning has been such beneficial elements for this COVID situation where people are forced to learn from home? We have this situation right now where we cannot ignore and we have to adapt with what we already have. That's why we have e-learning, including for the architecture students. Now, before I go even further, the Prime Minister, he mentioned about the communication aspect, which is beneficial for the architecture students, yada, yada, yada. And then they're talking about the sensual aspect, the visual, hearing, listening. But ladies and gentlemen, yes, of course, e-learning are not capable enough to have the sensual act as of now. However, we from the opposition side believe that online learning are capable on giving representations of the real one-to-one copy of the actual world, as I mentioned about the 3D view of the Google Earth that we have, for example. Pardon? And when we are mentioning about the creating of one-to-one copy, it is not a replication, dear government. It is an actual thing that is on Earth. And we also, from the second speaker from our side, he also mentioned about how we have this data on the internet where students can also make use of them. Students can also research on the places on the site that they are discussing, and architecture students, as we are right now, we can also make use of that information. Let's be honest here. As an architecture student, how much do you rely on internet to get information about certain things? We don't really ignore the internet capabilities and advantages that they already have. And online learning helps the students to use that capabilities, the easiness of internet, and make them use for their studies or research or perhaps help. But before I move further, please, your PY.
You were mentioning about your second speaker talking about local planning, which is produced by someone else and does not work on a case-to-case basis. It is not conducive to the creative process, which is what we are discussing today, which you have failed to address.
All right. Now that is just an example, Mr. Speaker. I was explaining about how it can be beneficial for the students. Let's be honest here. How much of information does a student of architecture need in order to help them in creative process design? Literally, anything that they can see from the internet is good enough for them just to help them with what they already have as of this current situation. We are now debating regarding the e-learning hindering the creative process, but we forgot to mention one thing from the opposition. We would like to clarify that, don't you think, dear government, with the help of internet, with the help of online learning platform, students, architecture students, even the lecturers can be more creative in a way where they can be creative into the technical aspect, creative aspect, and how would they creatively communicate with the students and teachers one-to-one session without any more, without any hindrance, where they can focus, as the leader of opposition has mentioned. Our leader of opposition has also mentioned about the focus that we need as an architecture students to help the architecture students themselves to develop their ideas on creative and designs, as we all understand by this point that creativity come within ourselves. We don't go to lectures and get the creative stuff like suddenly, and they come it out of nowhere saying that the lecture, the physical class has this magic potential to help the students suddenly get all these good ideas and help them in creative design. No, we are simply saying that from our side, we believe our first speaker, the leader of opposition, to clarify this motion for today, he mentioned about the develop to it helps the online learning platform helps to develop focus for the architecture students, and they also can be flexible at all times, and they can help them with any process regarding with what we already have. For example, we have Zoom, we have Google Meet, we have Jamboard. Students can communicate more with that. They can be even more creative with using this technology that we have, ladies and gentlemen. And now second speaker also mentioned about the locomotive cognitive thinking design, which also help them in the creative design process, and also how e-learning provided assist the freedom for the students to learn more. They can explore more on the internet, as the internet provides more data, as we mentioned. And because of that, we from the opposition side still stand strong with our belief. We are the motion for today is rejected as this house should. This house believes that online learning will not hinder the creative process among architecture students, and thus I raise my case. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ismail. The opposition whip spoke for 6 minutes and 59 seconds. Now, 3 minutes will be given to both teams to prepare for their reply speeches. The time starts now. Your 3 minutes is out. Sorry. Okay. Your 3 minutes is out. So before we start, may I know who's going to, for the reply speeches, who's going to speak for behalf of the government and for behalf of the opposition?
For the government, it will be by Justin, which is me.
Okay.
Opposition is me, Sauban.
Sauban. Okay.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, this debate will resume with the reply speeches. Let us now invite opposition team to sum up the case for today's debate.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, it is crystal clear and obvious that our stand is that this House rejects that online learning can hinder architecture student creativity. Ladies and gentlemen, government sides, all right, she's failed to elucidate us on how is that hard and needed to be filtered by the government side, by the way of third speaker, and she's keep mumbling on that. All right. Online learning does not suck, but bad learning design does. When students are complaining about the online learning experience, they are complaining about the lack of opportunities within the exploration, because everything is on internet right now. They are just lazy. It's like you are tucking stones in your pocket when you are just talking merely about benefit of physical class. We can simply grasp that because we've been living this all years, and you simply ignore the benefits of online learning as if you are not using Jamboard or even not using the device that you are using for e-learning right now. And then you jump into a dam when you talk about the internet when the context is about creativity that does not evolve our that does not evolve that creativity that does not evolve through internet. Creativity is evolved through within ourselves, and still have the audacity of hopes to float to winning on today's argument. Ladies and gentlemen, you yourself can evaluate on what government have act and speak. Ladies and gentlemen, even nowadays, it's extremely likely that professional training, including that necessary to become an architect, will be conducted primarily online in the relatively near future. This means that the design studio classes, a hallmark or the architect experience, will also happen online, likely without the in-person, face-to-face contact that defines the experience. The government keeps ignoring our points on the benefits of e-learning because their brain themselves can accept the fact on adaptability of our brain, the mechanism on how face-to-face differentiate with online learning, other than expose themselves with the 3D stuff, absorbing the vibes and sort, proves that they are seeing e-learning like you are learning in a bubble or isolation. E-learning can also be a self-exploration process where it will even increase the cognitive ability to our own brain to follow the design process without external influences, as said by the OL and the OL, by the OL and the OL. Local planning is made by someone else. Isn't that someone else comes from the local authority themselves, who is actually mastery in senses and the entire factor of the environment of the site? They always underestimate our brain by saying that we are tired, drained, and etc. But did you know that our brain needs time to adapt? And can you differentiate the now and before? Our brain is now even stronger in adaptability. The government is looking e-learning as a short-term effect, while the long-term ideation effect is the most important part in the creativity. The mechanism of how the collaboration of face-to-face and e-learning is also merely being brought up by the government, which simply explain that they are not too in deep with the benefit of the face-to-face until they forget to do so. Let me reiterate back our point on the side of opposition. Why do we oppose the motion under the key phrase of fostering cognitive ability towards creativity, ability to focus, flexible learning, and instructor also can embrace the advanced technology. My handsome second speaker talking about locomotive design process, e-learning does provide an assisted freedom of learning. And my wit sums up the argument and point all of the loophole and clashing points from the opposition surely justifies that this house reject that online learning can hinder architecture student creativity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Salvan, for summing up the opposition's team. Lastly, we welcome the government team to sum up their case for today's debate.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. I will now present my reply speech. I would like to bring the floor back to the attention of the floor back to the motion itself, and I would like to simplify what we're arguing and debating over about. The motion is about how online learning hinders, which what we believe, the creative process among architecture students. And I've emphasized in my definition and also all of the speeches brought by me and also my colleagues is that this motion basically comes down to two main components. Online the learning process, which is acquiring knowledge, acquiring information, and the creative process. That's the first one. The creative process, the second main point of the motion, which is implementing all what we have learned, what the students have learned and acquired into some form of creation, ideation. Now, these are two really main points and main aspects of the motion that I believe that the opposition has failed to address completely. Now, online learning, the process of acquiring knowledge is very crucial to creative process. It is the start. It also comes in every single stage of the creative process. Now, in different stages of development, while the opposition argued that on the vast opportunity of online learning that it provides to acquire knowledge and understanding of certain matters, as if online learning is a god that can have all this omnipotence and knowledge that can provide to the students, they fail to realize that online learning its entirety depends on digital platforms. And they're confusing these two things, digital platforms and online learning. While online learning relies solely on digital platforms can be reused and can be used in a physical mode as well. Now, all of the benefits that come along with online learning, which actually is digital platforms, can exactly fully be used in physical classes, physical face-to-face classes. I could be sitting here with my laptop. I could show my friend right here next to me what I have on my SketchUp or on my Beam, and which makes their arguments on how good online learning, digital platforms can actually, their points actually support our point as well, our stand as well on how that online learning will hinder. Now, why would it hinder? Because it takes away the benefits of acquiring knowledge in a physical form, in a physical medium. It takes away the ability to experience something other than just a 2D screen that lights up right in front of my face. Now, implementing the such knowledge that acquired is also one major thing that they failed to address. They failed to talk about the creative process because they know that the creative process cannot go on with their current arguments. So the creative process is implementing all of this information that we've acquired into an organized process and to create and develop an idea. Now, the communication of such ideas and knowledge is crucial. And we're saying that physical mode will present all these ideas in a better form, in a much more superior form, rather than just bits and digits on the screen. And it cannot be accurately presented, it cannot be accurately transmitted, definitely because we're going through a medium that is strange, that is not personal, and is compared to physical. And also such transmission of communication of knowledge and of ideas are hindered by the online restrictions. And again, online learning is not a god. Internet connection, availability, it is all limitations of the online learning as well. And now we're not saying that face-to-face is the sole key of creative process, but it's very conducive to it. And we have proposed various benefits that online mediums cannot recreate, which the opposition completely ignored. But taking away all these benefits and taking away the mode of learning will only hinder the benefits, will only remove the benefits, and therefore proves that online learning hinders the creative process of architecture students. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Justin, for summing up the government's case. Ladies and gentlemen, with that marks the end of debate today. Honorable adjudicators will be directed to another breakout room for 10 minutes to decide the winner of this debate. Thank you. So adjudicators, you guys may go to the launch one. Thank you.
I will see the adjudicators there in a bit. I have to go through the loop. Sorry.
Hello. Kavi, are you going over to launch one?
Yes, the adjudicators should go to the launch one.
Tak boleh bergerak lah, dia just stuck.
Okay.
Because I'm the
Hold G, hold the character G to go through people.
Yeah, G key.
On the keyboard, you can hold G. Hello, Kavi. Why are you still in here? Is he there?
Others, please wait here, yeah. Please call your your teammate Ikram to come to the session one. Okay. Oh my. Alright. Excellent. Oh?
I enjoyed this.
Mr. Kavi, are you here? You supposedly go to the launch one. Mr. Kavi, I'm sorry. Mr. Kavi, right? Okay. Please stay in this room, guys.
And in fact, creativity is something that is very personal. You don't need external stimuli. But then on the other side, they say that no, this a lot of external stimuli is in fact needed for this creative process, i.e., the communication that you get from your friends, the collaborative work that you do with them, and also just being in a place and getting to see the place and coming up with ideas from them. But I think both teams fail to talk about the impact would actually result to one of these two methods, which is one, an external form of creative stimuli, and the other, an internal form of creative stimuli. Both teams didn't do this. However, if say the team from opposition came up and said that, guys, look, not everybody actually relies on going outside and touching the grass just to come up with a creative idea. In fact, there's a lot of people that just sit in their rooms and come up with creative ideas. So this would then give us a room to look at the scale, to what extent creativity is dependent upon an internal stimuli or an external stimuli. This argument we felt were lacking from side opposition, which was why we had to credit this win to the government. Beyond the reasons of there being 2 points on why the external stimuli is better, one being the collaborative process and the communication is helps you generate ideas. The second one being the sensory, being there at the place gives you a lot of gives you benefits in terms of the sensory experience, and therefore you can come up with ideas and solutions better. Now, the other clash point in this debate was about which side had better communication and collaboration and how that would affect the creative process. I think this was a bit more clearer. The win would have been awarded to Talos because Talos came out and said that, it's quite obvious that the communication and collaborative efforts are much harder online, although some of their arguments fell flat in that they could not tell us why exactly is this communication and collaborative efforts important in creating an ideas, apart from there being Zoom disruptions. Why could we just create another Zoom call and talk? So to me, at least, that was lacking on your end. But the response from the opposition was also lacking in terms of I couldn't see how exactly their alternative provided better communication or collaboration. And they sort of played along with the tune from the government because I personally did not see the importance of their of the importance of communication and collaboration in the creative process, but because the opposition did not point it out and say, guys, we don't need it. Like they did come up. I think the second speaker did talk about you don't have to depend on other people for ideas. You can come up with that on your own. Again, the impact of it was not being seen because they did not talk to us about how many students or to what extent would students prefer this over the other solutions. So, but to come back to more general feedback, right? There were a few things that were said by both teams that made it very difficult for us to edge this debate, and these are the benefits of online learning. Because the way I see this debate is, it is not essentially about online learning, but rather which of these methods help in the creative process for architecture students. So, some parts of the opposition talk solely about how online learning is better, but we couldn't see the link between how that online learning benefits could actually help you in the creative process as defined by the government, this whatever process they've mentioned. And in the government side also that happened to some extent. I couldn't see I wanted more in terms of why exactly do people need to be on the ground to come up with ideas. There were logical leaps, but those logical leaps were more acceptable compared to what came from the opposition. So besides that, I can just summarize this debate simply in two things. I think because there was a lack of impact on the arguments, it made it easier for us to award the win to Talos compared to the opposition. In terms of the two clashes on the creativity being an external internal stimuli, this was also won by Talos because they had two sort of contentions under this compared to the one from IIUM. And finally, on the issue of the communication and collaboration, while I could not see why that was important, the opposition played into the tune of why this is an important factor, did not question it. So we have to award this win to Talos. So with all of these reasons being said, congratulations to Talos for winning this debate. I personally thought it was a close debate. I congratulate both teams because the next rounds are going to be a win-win situation for all of you, because either way, you're going to get a debate again. If you have any other further questions or if you want personal education, please feel free to contact me, Sophia, or even AR Amy. Yeah, That's about it, guys.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations to Taylor for making it to the finals. So now we will be announcing both of the winners for today's match. So stay tuned. Good evening, everyone, ladies and gentlemen of this virtual room. So now we would like to announce the both winners for today's semi-final. So the first room, which is between IIUM versus Taylor's University. So we would like to proudly announce that Taylor's University is the winner for the first room. Next, the second winner for the second match between USM versus UM. The winner goes to UM, University Malaya. So congratulations to both teams for their efforts and their passionate debating for tonight. So we would like to wish you guys best of luck for the placement, the 3/4 placement, and the final round for tomorrow. So, and also we would like to extend our gratitude to the honorable adjudicators for taking their time in adjudicating four of these teams. Okay, so I think that is all for tonight. Thank you very much for joining in this competition. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you, everyone. You may leave this room by clicking the X tab on the browser. Thank you very much, everyone.